Good evening, everybody. Meteorologist Nicholas Snider here. This is First Alert Plus. Today is Tuesday, March 11th, 2025. We are talking about quite a bit of active weather that is expected to start to move on into the WSAZ viewing area, including a very potent storm system that will be headed our way. Let's talk about the three big things this evening. Large storm will loom for the weekend. Of course, we're also talking about St. Patrick's Day weather. I know a lot of people are excited to get out and about and enjoy some of that festivities going on all weekend long. We have your weekend covered, and of course we have Monday covered for any St. Patrick's Day parades you may be headed to. We are looking at that. Also, we're kind of recapping what is expected to be a very warm and pleasant week of weather over much of the WSAZ viewing area. Yeah, we're seeing very, very warm temperatures over the entire region. Should continue to be that warm and that nice over much of the region. Let's get right into what we're talking about here. Of course, the next big thing headed our way is that big system that's off in the Pacific Ocean, and we'll come back to that right here. I want you to notice the calmer pattern that is overhead right now, though. Of course, those calmer conditions thanks to an area of high pressure kind of centered over much of the central United States here, right highlighted in that red. And as we zoom on in further to the west and the south, you'll notice off the coast of California, yes, we are dealing with this swirl that you're seeing right in here coming onto the Los Angeles coast, and that's what's going to drive the more active weather, the not pleasant weather that we could be seeing on down the line here. And it's something we're really going to have to keep a very close eye on as we head into the weekend. This is expected to be a very potent system that will be moving its way on into the area, and so we'll get you the latest on what you can expect there and everything you'll need to know on that system as we move forward here. Of course, even some strong to severe storms could be a possibility, so it will certainly be something worth watching as we move forward here and go into much of your day on Saturday. So let's get right into it. Of course, we'll track this system into the Great Plains. Notice how it kind of moves on up, and I want to highlight a few things. What we're looking at is upper air energy or upper air spin. It gives us a good idea of exactly where there's air that's kind of moving away from itself, where it's coming together with itself. It's a good estimate, I should say, of tracking where areas of low pressure and high pressure can be. Very strong maximum in that energy right in here into much of the southeast region of the United States, right in there where I circled that, near the Memphis area. As that air moves toward us coming out of that, it diverges away up toward the St. Louis area, and we'll also see wind kind of diverging up toward, let's say, the Nashville, Knoxville area. So in that region of diverging air high up in the sky, what we typically see is the development of an area of low pressure. Air needs to fill that void. So it comes on in, it rises up into that, and that low pressure will develop. What causes that, of course, is precipitation. What's caused from that, I should say. So let's track it. I want you to also notice, too, the very strong winds that will be high up in our sky moving into that time frame here. Those strong winds indicated by the yellows, the pinks in here to the, let's say, southeast of Charleston, southwest of Charleston even. It's going to be an issue for sure going into the weekend right here. Even though these winds are a lot stronger higher up in the sky right in here, what this means is that some of those stronger winds could be moved down to the surface thanks to, let's say, showers and thunderstorms that can develop out of this. And definitely that will be a possibility of seeing some of those showers and thunderstorms that we will be moving on into the area going into Saturday. So something that will be a talker, and even those winds on their own can move down to the Earth's surface. So we're talking not only about showers and storms, but also gusty winds for the day on Saturday. It's denoted by very cold air that is located up into the center of this system right here. That cold air is here, and of course very warm air that's located over the Atlantic Ocean with this setup. And when you get that combination, you're going to drive a very fast wind. Warm air has higher pressure than cold air, and so that pressure gradient is going to force that wind really quickly, swiftly into our area, transporting some Gulf moisture into our area too, so that's going to be an issue with moist and unstable air likely producing the development of some showers and thunderstorms. So let's track the area of low pressure itself moving forward here. Again, it moves on in from the Great Plains. It takes its time for that energy to really catch up to that area of low pressure, but as it does, again, all this Gulf moisture that you see right there, denoted by the greens, eventually begins to move closer to our area, pulls in that moist and unstable air. That moist and unstable air likes to rise, and when you get that rising air, you get precipitation, you get cloud development. And I want you to also notice, again, that very tight pressure gradient that we're seeing right here, denoted by these white lines being very, very close together. So it's not only going to be a rainy Saturday, it's also going to be a windy Saturday, and the rain and wind could combine for some gusty thunderstorms, and yes, we could see some strong to severe storms out of that, capable of producing damaging winds, let's say to 60 miles an hour, an isolated area of hail, and yes, maybe even an isolated spin-up tornado. We'll get you more on that right now. So let's go to what the Storm Prediction Center thinks here. The Storm Prediction Center, they're out of Norman, Oklahoma. They kind of forecast all severe thunderstorms across the United States. It's very rare and unusual for our region to be under one of these events this far out. Usually we get under one of these, say, the day before or a couple days before, and they're on the low end. However, the Storm Prediction Center has already placed us in a level 1 5 days out. And again, that hasn't happened in quite a while. In fact, I don't like bringing this up, but factually true that the last time we were put under a risk like this far in advance was April 2nd of last year. By no means am I saying this is going to be another April 2nd. I don't think it will be, but the ingredients are showing up in high confidence. That's basically what the Storm Prediction Center is saying with this risk level. That does include the entire WSAZ viewing area, though, so we all are going to be on heightened alert Saturday evening, especially for some of those strong to severe thunderstorms. So let's go right here. Let's dive into the computer here. We'll get you a better look at some of our graphics that we do have, some of the tools we use to forecast, and I'll pull up what we typically look at. This is what we call, of course, convective available potential energy. It's a big word. It is a parameter used to forecast strong to severe storms. And I'll kind of highlight exactly what this all means. In this general area, this is one particular model. This is the American model. I'll show you the European model in just a second. In this blue area, though, that's where you're showing some of the higher instability and moisture parameters that would be capable of producing some storms. I do think the highest severe weather threat, the highest tornado threat, the highest hail threat will be further to the west, mainly in eastern Kentucky and our western counties here in Ohio. So the Portsmouth area, Waverly, Piketon, up toward perhaps Jackson, Ohio, down to Moorhead, down to Sandy Hook, Grayson, down to, let's say, Salyers. That's where it seems the ingredients are lining up here best. Same thing on this model. This is the European model. It's a different color scale, but it's showing the same general idea here. Where you see these lighter purples and the blues is where that energy will be really sufficient to support some of these stronger storms. So that's what we're taking a very, very close look at here, is those areas of energy. Now, let's get even more technical here. This is what's called a sounding. It's basically taking a vertical look of a profile of the atmosphere. I showed you this last week, by the way. Gives us an illustration. This red line's our temperature. This obviously is showing temperature decreasing with height. With temperature decreasing with height, it's unstable because warmer air tends to rise. And as long as the air surrounding it is cooler than the air that's rising, the air will continue to rise. This little dashed line is a theoretical kind of a speck of air, if you will. And again, it's showing warmer than the air surrounding it. So this will continue to rise, at least in this. This, of course, is a profile of our moisture with height. When that is closer to this temperature, you get more moist. So it's a pretty moist atmosphere. Your cloud heights or your cloud bases should be around, let's say, 1,000 meters here. And so when you have this energy, you combine it with the winds. This is a vertical graph of winds with height. Notice how they're turning from southerly to more southwesterly to eventually west-southwesterly here. That's what is known as veering winds with height. When you get a turn like that and you notice our mean wind by this square right here. If you get a little space in between the lowest kilometer, the 0 kilometer mark, and let's say the lowest 3 kilometers, there's enough rotation in the atmosphere for a storm to ingest. And that's certainly showing that here. So that's why we're not ruling out isolated tornadoes with this event. Again, I'm not saying this is going to be another April 2nd, but we do have that threat of perhaps a spin-up tornado, especially in that Kentucky area where I was highlighting earlier, where that stronger thunderstorm energy will exist on Saturday evening. So it's certainly a possibility. That's why the Storm Prediction Center has us in that kind of area. The European model showing the same thing here with its ingredients, with the winds kind of turning with height. The storm will ingest that rotation with height. And yes, it will produce perhaps some spinning storms that will be capable of hail. Not saying there's guaranteed a tornado, but the threat is low for an isolated spin-up tornado. Can't totally say that we're not going to see maybe a tornado warning on Saturday evening or a brief spin-up tornado. We're keeping a very, very close eye on that situation, and of course, we'll continue to update you. This is a very dynamic and fluid system. Things could change down the line. Certainly, they have kind of wavered a little bit back and forth over the last 24 hours, but they've been consistent. But still, this could change. We're still 5 days away from the event. You're going to want to stay tuned to the WSAZ weather app, to the WSAZ Facebook page, me on Facebook, Tony on Facebook, Brandon on Facebook, Hannah on Facebook. We've all got you covered for what could be this event headed our way for Saturday. And again, even if you don't get a storm, it's going to be windy. You could see your trash can tipped over. You could see some power flickers, the porch furniture blown around. So even if you don't see storms on Saturday, wind's going to be blowing. Gusts up to 40 miles an hour, certainly a possibility. By the way, before this, it's going to be 80 degrees on Friday. So again, while we're seeing this very nice weather, it'll be a great idea to get out and about and enjoy what is headed our way. So again, I was talking about the severe weather threats here in showing you those really kind of ingredients that we could see developing on in. Let's talk about this. Again, I mentioned we have the chances at seeing a few of these. Let's go back to full screen here. Didn't mean to cut you off there, but an isolated tornado, again, can't be ruled out. Isolated, scattered, large hail, still a possibility there as well. The most likely threat is damaging straight line winds up to 60 miles an hour from these storms. That is typical for our area. We're not really Tornado Alley here. So not expecting to see a huge tornado threat, but that a high wind threat is the most likely of the threats that could work its way into the area. Highlighting that for you with the arrow right there. There is a very low shot at flooding. I don't think this is going to be a flooding event. Most of the heavier rain should be falling further to the south and west of our area, so down into, let's say, central Kentucky, down into central portions of Tennessee, down toward the Nashville area, down toward, let's say, London, Kentucky, and points further to the south and west. Flooding, really not a concern with this event, which is good news. We don't need to see any more flooding after what we saw back in, let's say, mid-February. Not expected to happen, but again, we could be dealing with other issues in terms of severe weather. And even outside of that severe weather threat, we have that wind threat that, again, we need to still talk about over the region. Let's talk about that wind threat with these storms as well. Notice how we're dry for much of the week here, and then those storms begin to work their way on in Saturday evening. I mentioned that evening time frame. I do think we will see at least a little bit of rain during the late morning, early afternoon hours of Saturday, but it's Saturday evening when that biggest threat for strong to severe storms will exist. I mentioned we're going to talk about the wind threat. Let's get right into this. Of course, winds could gust all day on Saturday. Look at that, 34 miles an hour in Huntington, 36 miles an hour in Charleston. This is the European model, by the way. 43 mile an hour gusts in Portsmouth, certainly a possibility. Everyone could see a wind gust up to 40, 45, maybe even 50 miles an hour outside of those storms. So it's still going to be a very, very windy day, and it's something, again, that is going to be worth talking about over much of the region for those gusty winds. And again, that could knock down your trash cans, could blow around some of the loose objects in your yard, power flickers. If we get a gust up to 50 miles an hour, then you're talking about tree limb damage and everything like that. Most of that activity, at least the damaging activity, should be coming from those severe storms that I did mention earlier. But certainly it's a possibility. We'll have to watch. Again, this event could change. Still a lot up in the air with what we're seeing here. So we'll continue to keep this in mind moving forward here as we get through the weekend. It's a very dynamic system. It's a very powerful system. But with how dynamic this system is, everything could change at the drop of a hat. So we're going to continue to watch it very closely, and we will have you covered for the rest of the week here for what could be a very impactful Saturday headed our way. By the way, too, great weather all week. Get out this week, and then this weekend, if you want to be inside for not so nice of a day on Saturday, the WSAZ Home and Garden Show down at Marshall Health Network Arena. We will all be there at some point, so you'll have to stop by and say hi and get to know everybody, especially as the weather is just not going to be all that great, especially Saturday and Sunday. So come on by, say hi. We will all be there. Now let's move on. Talking about St. Patrick's Day, I mentioned we were going to give you an early preview on that here, and it's certainly going to look a little bit nice for your St. Patrick's Day here as we go into, let's say, the beginning of your next week. Let's talk about it. Again, we'll go back to that wind, and then we'll talk about St. Patrick's Day. Here's the next system. Look at this, high pressure. As soon as that low pressure clears out, high pressure will work on in for the day Monday. So Monday's not looking too bad. Problem is that high pressure is further to the west. So when we're on the west side of that high pressure, we get northerly winds pulling in some cooler conditions that could be expected. And so that will be something we have to watch. We get the northerly winds. We're on the cool side of that high pressure. So cooler conditions, unfortunately, yes, expected for your St. Patrick's Day. But the good news is those temperatures are not going to be too much cooler, only into the mid-50s. I do remember, though, back in February when we were saying mid-50s felt very, very warm. Now, definitely not going to see or not be feeling that after an 80-degree Friday, but certainly not quite very cold, and we will definitely take that over much of the area. Here's your St. Patrick's Day early look forecast. We're doing an Irish jig. We have enough sunshine in there to be pretty happy. Temperature starting in the 30s. It is going to be on the cooler side. Morning parades, definitely cooler, but back into the 40s by the noon hour, mid-50s by the time you're headed into the afternoon. So by parade's end, it's feeling pretty nice out there. We're clear and we're sunny, too. So you fellow Irish people like me who burn easily in the sunshine, yeah, you're probably going to need that sunscreen on St. Patrick's Day. But other than that, you're looking fine. Any plans you have outside, not looking too bad, especially coming on the day after a pretty windy day on Sunday, too. By the way, we're watching Sunday very closely for some gusty winds as well, so we'll definitely have to take a very close look at that. Of course, it's feeling very springy all around the WSAZ viewing area right now. Let's get to that and the reasons behind that. Very cold air trapped up in the poles. Now, we were talking a lot all winter about just how that cold air continued to impact areas very far to the north up here in that circled area, and it was moving its way down into our region as we went through the winter. That's not the case right now. It's being trapped up there, and I want you to notice, too, a big reason for this being trapped up there is because of Alaska. It's much cooler now, Alaska. So Alaska being cool actually helps our region out and keeps us on the better side of things. I'll highlight that for you. Again, Alaska being in the cooler temperatures drives the warmer temperatures further to the north in the continental United States and keeps that air bottled up here in the Hudson Bay. So we are talking about, again, very nice conditions all week here, and we could be seeing record highs by Friday. Highs in the 80s. That is certainly going to be feeling very, very nice by mid-March standards. We will definitely take that over the entire area. Let's move this a little bit closer on in. Again, notice the warmer conditions. That's kind of the big thing we're talking about all week here, 70s and 80s. Lovely, lovely conditions over the entire WSAZ viewing area. We're taking it right here. Big dome of warm air over the entire, really eastern half of the country here. And again, we're watching that system off California closely for what's headed our way Saturday. We've talked about that earlier on First Alert Plus. But overall, just very nice conditions continuing to impact the area all week. We're dry, we're sunny. I want you to mind those burn bans, though. They go into effect during the daytime. They get out of effect to about 5, 6 p.m. I think 5 p.m. in West Virginia, 6 p.m. in Kentucky and Ohio. Don't burn before then during the day because, again, brush fire spread is a real possibility with how dry it is out there. So you're going to have to keep that in mind. And again, the warm weather continues. Let's move the map forward here. We'll show you just how the warm air continues to infiltrate much of the area as we go into the rest of the week. We are feeling very springy, almost summer-like by the day Friday. Look at Friday. We go from those blues all the way into the green conditions, and again, that's highs near 80 degrees. So we'll take it. It's going to be very nice and warm and very pleasant for your Friday. Still seeing some sunshine, but also breezy conditions. So keep that in mind for your Friday, but fantastic weather to be outside and enjoying. Again, setting the map in motion. This is the official National Weather Service forecast. They're a bit cooler than our 80 degrees, but still talking about 75 Charleston. As far north as Cleveland, you're in the mid-60s. So even if you're going up to the Great Lakes, although be mindful of that 65, if you're closer to Lake Erie, as a native Clevelander, I remember you're still going to be in the 40s and 50s right along Lake Erie. Further to the south, of course, you'll be warmer. But the warm weather, name of the game, continues to make its way further to the north, and we will be overall fantastic as we head on into the end of the week. And we begin to kick off our First Alert Weather Day on Saturday. This is First Alert Plus. We air every Tuesday, 6:45 p.m. We talk about everything you need to know in depth and give you that first alert for the next impactful thing as soon as we can. Airing again, 6:45 p.m. All digital platforms, WSAZ. That's Facebook. That's the WSAZ app. That's, of course, YouTube. And that's our WSAZ.com and WSAZ pages all around. Be sure to check it out. Be sure to share it and like if you're watching on YouTube. Share it if you're on Facebook. Give me a follow. I'm at Snider_WX on Twitter and Instagram. Meteorologist Nicholas Snider on Facebook. And again, we continue to get you the latest on everything you need to know as soon as that active weather comes. We'll keep you updated too on air with Saturday's very dynamic system. In the meantime, make it a great Tuesday.